The wind swept through the dry plains, carrying with it the faint scent of cedar and the echoes of a land that had seen both friendship and bloodshed. Mary Whitfield, a settler widow of 34, gripped the reins of her wagon as the wooden wheels creaked against the dusty trail. Her husband had died 2 years ago in a fever that came with the spring rains, leaving her with nothing but a small cabin, a patch of land, and the memory of what once was. The neighbors pitied her, some offered help, but Mary carried a stubborn strength in her heart. She refused to be a burden. She had learned to chop her own wood, mend her fences, and carry water from the creek. Yet, at night when the lantern flickered low, loneliness pressed against her chest like a weight she could not lift. On one such day, as Mary rode back from the trading post with flour, kerosene, and some cloth, she saw something that made her heart pound. By the edge of the trail lay a man, giant, broad-shouldered, his skin darkened by the sun, his black hair tangled and long. He wore the remnants of Apache clothing, his chest streaked with dust and blood. His breathing was shallow, and for a moment, Mary froze. Fear darted through her veins. Settlers spoke often of raids, of the Apaches who fought fiercely to protect their lands. She had never seen one this close, and certainly not one who looked half dead. She could have driven past, told herself it was not her burden. But something inside her shifted. She thought of her husband lying fevered, gasping for air, and how she would have given anything for a stranger's help then. She thought of her own brother, killed in a skirmish years back, his body left unattended. Compassion outweighed fear, and before she could argue with herself, she climbed down from the wagon and knelt beside him. "Can you hear me?" she whispered, touching his arm gently. The man's eyes fluttered open, dark, fierce eyes that still carried a fire, though his body was broken. His lips moved, but the words were faint, in a language she only half understood. He was asking for water. Quickly, Mary fetched her canteen, lifting his head carefully as she poured the cool liquid against his cracked lips. He drank greedily, then slumped again, his chest rising and falling. Mary's hands trembled. She could not leave him there, the wolves would find him by nightfall. Swallowing her fear, she tugged and strained, finally managing to roll his heavy frame onto the wagon bed. Her muscles burned, her breath came ragged, but she did not stop until he was safely inside. She took the reins again, urging her horse forward, her heart racing with the knowledge of what she had just done, brought an Apache warrior into her world. The road home felt longer than ever. Every sound made her flinch, every shadow seemed to whisper of danger. But when she glanced back and saw his chest still rising, some strange peace settled over her. He was alive, and for now, that mattered more than the risk. At her cabin, Mary worked quickly. She dragged him inside, laying him on her bed, then fetched water, cloth, and herbs she had learned to use from an older neighbor woman. She cleaned his wounds, deep cuts across his side, bruises that told of a brutal fight. He groaned but did not resist. For 2 days, he drifted between fever and sleep, and Mary sat by his side, wiping his brow, spooning broth into his mouth when he stirred. She sang softly sometimes, hymns her mother used to hum when she was a child, and though she doubted he understood, his body seemed to rest easier when her voice filled the room. On the 3rd day, he opened his eyes fully. He looked at her, not with gratitude at first, but with the raw wariness of a man accustomed to enemies. Mary's heart skipped. She set down the cloth in her hand and spoke carefully. "You are safe here. I will not harm you." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with effort, he whispered in broken English, "Why, help me." Mary hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because no one deserves to die alone." Something softened in his gaze, a flicker of surprise, as though he had expected cruelty but found compassion instead. He closed his eyes again, but this time, it was not with fear, it was with trust. Days turned into weeks. The man, whose name Mary learned was Dakota, healed slowly under her care. He was massive, towering when he finally stood, his presence filling the small cabin. Yet, he moved with surprising gentleness, never taking more space than needed, always watching her with a quiet, unreadable expression. At first, they spoke little, language forming a wall between them. But as time passed, they found ways around it, gestures, broken words, the shared language of survival. She taught him some English, he taught her Apache words. They laughed awkwardly when she mispronounced them, and sometimes she caught him smiling, a rare, fleeting warmth that made her heart flutter. One evening, as the sun set in ribbons of orange and gold, Dakota sat outside whittling a piece of wood. Mary brought him bread and stew, sitting beside him. The air was quiet, save for the crickets beginning their song. She dared to ask what had happened to him. His eyes grew distant, and after a long silence, he said softly, "War. Lost many. I run. You, find me." Her chest tightened. She wanted to ask more, but the pain in his eyes silenced her. Instead, she laid a hand lightly on his arm. "You're safe here," she said again. He looked at her then, and for the first time, she saw not just the warrior, but the man tired, wounded, carrying burdens she could only imagine. The days grew into a rhythm. He helped her chop wood, repair the roof, carry heavy water barrels, tasks that had weighed heavily on her alone. She, in turn, mended his torn clothes, shared her bread, and listened when he tried haltingly to explain his world. Slowly, the cabin that once echoed with emptiness began to feel alive again. But not everyone saw it kindly. When Mary went to the trading post, whispers followed her. Neighbors noticed the tall figure in her yard, the Apache who lingered by her side. Some warned her, some mocked her, and others threatened. "You're playing with fire, Mary," one man sneered. "That savage will turn on you. Mark my words." Yet Mary held her ground. She had seen Dakota's eyes when he tended her garden, when he patched the holes in her fence, when he gently shooed away a stray dog from the henhouse. Those were not the eyes of a man waiting to betray. They were the eyes of someone who had known too much loss and found a fragile piece of peace in her company. One stormy night, as thunder rolled and rain pelted the roof, Mary woke to a sound, Dakota at her door, his face shadowed with conflict. She rose, wrapping her shawl, and whispered, "What is it?" He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "You, kind. Save me. Care for me. In my people, when heart chooses, it is forever." He touched his chest, then pointed gently toward her. "You are mine now." Mary's breath caught. The words, though simple, carried a weight, a promise deeper than anything she had known since her husband's death. She saw the sincerity in his gaze, the unspoken vow of a man who did not give his heart lightly. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear, but of something she had not felt in years, the possibility of being seen, cherished, chosen. She reached out, laying her hand over his. "And you are mine." The storm raged outside, but within the small cabin, a different kind of storm settled, one of healing, of hope, of two souls who had crossed paths against all odds and found in each other what neither thought possible again. Their love was not easy. It was met with judgment, with trials, with the harsh reality of two worlds colliding. But it endured. For compassion had lit its first spark, kindness had nurtured it, and courage carried it forward. Mary, the settler widow who once walked alone, and Dakota, the giant Apache warrior once left for dead, built a life together, not out of fear, but out of the unshakable truth that love can bloom where it is least expected, and that sometimes, the most unlikely bond can change everything. And so, as seasons turned and years passed, their story lived not just in their hearts but in the whispers of the wind across the plains, a reminder that even in a world scarred by division, humanity has the power to bridge the deepest divides. For in the end, kindness is the language that all hearts understand.